99 shillings to the dollar. It's gotten there faster than what many experts had anticipated.
Yes, certainly. I mean, we were thinking it probably, gravitate towards that level, probably in a couple of months, but, it's come a lot sooner.
And what is it all about? I mean, inflation is high, monetary policy hasn't really taken effect in terms of changing rates on the discount window rate, lifting up interest rates. And Kenya seems to be a lot more susceptible to Europe than I would have thought. Why is that?
Well, I think to a certain extent, the Kenyan economy is quite interlinked with Europe. If you think about the flour exports and so forth, tea, of course, is more linked to the Middle East. But I think it's more towards the local scenario. Inflation is a concern, but interest rates are up quite significantly, and we should be seeing some inflows which haven't started coming through yet. I think that's one of the concerns. Then also when you look at the balance of payments, I think that has been also a big concern on the part of investors. Already we are seeing the current account deficit expanding quite significantly, and the data we've not had it until the last maybe 1 or 2 months. So that's also a bit of a challenge.
What does this mean for fixed income assets? Because in recent weeks, we've seen Treasury bill rates rising significantly, the yields as well going up, exponentially. Maybe I'm exaggerating here, but there's just a sense that there isn't any value in investing in government debt at this moment because of these factors.
Well, the 2-year came in at around 16%. I mean, by any measures, if you consider the risk of Kenya, it's a very good return. I think the main concern now, especially for someone investing in Kenya, is the exchange rate. How far are you getting into Kenya and how low the exchange rate could get. So I think that's the main concern. But for the locals, I think there's that issue about trying to just maintain some sort of wait and see, and that's pushing the interest rates a lot higher.
Moving to the main index, and as I said earlier on, British American up 8.4%. So it's starting to stabilize in terms of a price that investors find a little bit more believable. But we've also seen gains today for CFC Insurance and also for Access. I'm aware that volumes are thin, but what drove these counters? Yeah,
you've mentioned it. I mean, volumes are thin. Sellers are becoming now less enthusiastic to offload their positions. So we are seeing some pullback in some of these counters. And so essentially, they've come off so significantly that, sellers are not willing to sell. So, the buyers are having to bid up slightly.
Okay, now let's talk about things we're going to see in the future in the context of this market, and also learning our lessons from the listing of British American and the low subscriptions for their IPO. Consolidated Bank says they're planning an IPO. The timing, the feasibility of getting a good uptake?
I think it depends on the horizon that they're looking at. I mean, maybe they're looking at early next year, maybe mid next year. Obviously, it's just an announcement. We've not seen anything firm as of this point. So we cannot judge the merits. But I think a lot also depends on the pricing and whether investors judge that as being attractive. A weaker currency, obviously, is a big concern. If you are listing a company now, at least as an advantage, if you can sell your company as benefiting from a weaker currency, then maybe that could be something that investors would be willing to look at.
And what would they be offering? Because already we've got some very prized assets in the banking space and insurance industry.
I think from a valuation point of view, they'd have to look at the market and probably look at a discount towards that. So in essence, if you want to list now, you don't expect very good valuation levels.
Okay, and Precision Air is also making headlines, and I understand that this is a Tanzanian company in which Kenyan Airways is trying to reduce its stake. In terms of the process, because we do know that there have been some issues with Kenyan investors being involved on the Dar es Salaam Stock Exchange, the value of Precision Air, why Kenya Airways is withdrawing. What do you make of everything? Because it has aroused a lot of interest.
I think, in essence, it's actually making Precision Air much more of the mainstream airline in Tanzania. It's already the largest airline, but you have Air Tanzania, which is sort of like the flag carrier of Tanzania. So essentially, if you have it listed and Tanzanians owning 51%, foreigners will be able to buy 49% of the airline. So it's not necessarily too bad. And then you're having a much wider pool of shareholders, both Tanzania and international investors. So in essence, it's a very good strategy on the part of Kenya Airways, in order to ensure that Precision Air becomes much more dominant in the routes that it decides to set up in years to come.